All right, sixth graders, we are in our workbooks. We're just finishing up module 1 today of notes. You're going to have some time tomorrow to be catching up in your packet. You really need to work on turning off the talking and the chatting and really get focused on working on your work. So a lot of this has been review of what we've already done in our packet. So before we even got this workbook out, we did a lot of work with ratios. So if you're not liking the way the workbook is showing you how, it is completely fine to be going back and checking out those other notes to kind of figure out how we showed those things as well, okay? So we're on page 37 in our workbook, and we're just going to be looking at 1-5, which is the last page in our packet as well. So that tells you we should be getting finished up. We will likely have a work day on Friday, and then we will see about where we're at on Monday with that. I'm guessing review and then quiz early next week, but we will kind of have to play it by ear to see how things are going. All right, so on page 37, this is just showing you how we could use bar diagrams to solve ratio problems. So it says 3 out of 5 randomly selected students at a certain school play sports. There are 525 students at the school. So if we said 3 out of 5, they made 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, and then 3 out of those 5 play sports. So if our total, all of those are 525, we're trying to figure out how many play sports. So essentially, they divided that 525 by what? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And there they got 105, right? So you might have to do a little long division, right? 5 into 525. So you would say 5 goes into 5 once. 1 times 5 is 5, so we subtract 5 here, right? Then they brought down the 2. 5 cannot go into 2, so we have to hold that 0 there. Then we brought down the 5. So 5 goes into 25 5 times. So that's how they got 105 there. So to figure out how many play sports, they said 3 times that was 315 students. All right. So they kind of drew it out to figure out what they were doing. Once they saw that they had to split it into 5 pieces, they knew they were dividing. So that kind of helped to see why they were dividing. Okay. And once we knew it was 3 of those pieces, we knew 3 times that would help us get the right answer. All right. So on page 38 is our first example. 2 out of 3 randomly selected students in Miss Mason's class at Heritage Middle School prefer cats. Really random, but okay. So if there's 750 students, we know the total of these 3 are 750. So they split it into 3 because 2 out of 3. So we have to divide 750 by 3, right? They did that here for you. But if we think 75 divided by 3, 3/4. So 25 or 250 for each of these. So they put 250 and 250 and 250 here to total still that 750 students. Okay. So far, so good. Does that make sense? So because there are 2 sections labeled preferred cats, we're saying 2 times that 250 or 250 plus 250. They figured out that 500 students prefer cats at the middle school. All right. Now, out of every 10 students, 3 said their news from their cell phone. They get their news from their cell phone. Sorry, I skipped a word and it had me clueless. All right. So we need 10 boxes. So I'm just going to draw this bar to help me figure it out. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. If I draw 9 lines, I should have 10. Not very even though. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay. Again, there's 750 students. And we're saying that 3 out of every 10. So these 3 here, right? But the total from here all the way to the end here is 750. So how many pieces do we need to divide this 750 by? Well, they told us 10, right? That's why we drew 10 pieces. So if we divide this by 10, we're pretty much taking the 0 away. So each one of these is 75. That's a lot of 75s to write. That's a lot of work. It's good for your hand muscles to practice writing. All right, so 3 of them, 3 out of every 10. So 75 plus 75 plus 75, or 75 times 3. It's a good practice for you. 75 times 3, right? 3 times 5 is 15. So carry your 1. 3 times 7 is 21, plus that 1 makes 22. So we have a total of 225 students. Does that seem reasonable compared to this total? I think so. All right, so let's look at example 2 now. Should be pretty similar. If he took 18 photos on his cell phone, and the ratio of number of photos Marcus took to the number of photos his sister Maribel took is 3 to 4. So Marcus to Maribel, this was, of course, they start with the same 3 letters, but we're trying to figure out how many Maribel took. So 3 out of every 4 were Marcus's, is that right? Yes. Oh yeah, they're telling us. So we know Marcus took a total of 18 photos. So if I had to divide those into 3 pieces, what's 18 divided by 3? Each one would be 6, right? Which means Maribel, each of the 4 pieces would be 6. So Maribel took this total, all of those, which is 6 times 4, which is 24. So they walked us through that. So I think this one's a bit trickier than the first one, because the ratio is worded, I think, a bit differently than we're used to. A survey of randomly selected people found that the ratio of people who prefer oatmeal raisin to those who prefer chocolate chip. Ooh, who would prefer oatmeal raisin to chocolate chip? Okay. Is 3 to 5. So 3 prefer oatmeal raisin and 5 prefer chocolate chip. So we would have 5 pieces. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4 lines should give us 5 pieces. Let's double check. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And 3 of these 3 would be the oatmeal raisin. I'm just going to write raisin. And all of these, all 5 of these, the chip, the chocolate chip. All right. So if 27 people said they prefer oatmeal raisin, I have to divide it amongst these 3. So a total of 27. So 27 divided by 3 is 9. So 9, 9, 9 would add up to 27. So we know 2 more 9s because they all have to be the same piece, right? So how many total like chocolate chip? 9 times 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 9 times 5 is 45. I don't think this was as difficult as we thought it was going to be. All right, I think the bar diagram do help a bit. All right, So this is the method that I think gets a little bit crazy. Okay? But I think you can do it. You're used to seeing this, you're just not used to seeing them in this form. So they put them on a number line. But it's kind of similar to being in a chart. But let's see. First they drew it. So for loads, these go up by 15. We're trying to figure out, we know that it takes 150 ounces to do 75 loads. So they broke it down because we need to figure out 30 loads. So notice this total, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 pieces to get to 150. So let's see if we divide that 150 by 5, because we have 5 things, let's see if it would work. 30, 60, 90, 120. So I know that 150 divided by 5 is 3, or 15 divided by 5 is 3. So 150 divided by 5 is 30. So I was kind of checking, well, is that how I would do it? If remember, these have to go up by the same amount. And this way it does. All right. So then they showed that they did that here. So if they looked to where the 30 loads was and figured out that it would take 60 ounces of detergent. Okay. So let's look at a different method. So this is kind of the method that we've been using, right? We usually had a question mark, not like a D or whatever. But they were trying to figure out, and I think this gets ugly because I would probably simplify this, right? Remember how we had to scale back to scale up? We can't do anything with a whole number. See, they're going by 2.5 to get to 30. So I would probably simplify this. Like, I know I can divide both of these by 25. Actually, I can divide both of these by 75. And that would be 1 and 2 on the bottom. So then I would go back and say, okay, if it was 1 to 2, then I'm trying to figure out 30 to what? And I could easily do this because how do I get here? I'm multiplying that by 30. So what's 2 times 30? 60. So I think the way they've taught us to before, the scaling back, and I think that was one of the more trickier things when I was here on Tuesday. I was helping some friends to scale back. But if you can simplify one of the ratios, a lot of times that will help you get to that one with a nice number, not with like a 2.5, because we don't know what 2.5 times 75 is. That's ridiculous. Or 75 divided by 2.5. I think that's silly. So I would definitely scale down to scale back up. All right, so then they use this number line again here. We're not sure. We know these are going up by 96s every time. So this would be 2, 4, 6, 8, and this would be 10. So they wrote up to, they kept adding 96 as they went on. And then they wrote across from it because it was going up by 2 each time to figure out that it would take 10 cases. All right. So that's going to walk you through that example. And again, this one's a little bit nicer, but I still think like if you scaled this back and divided by 2, you would have 1 and 48, which you can much, much more easily see that, oh, I wrote 480, sorry, 1 and 48. That to get to 480, you would be multiplying by 10. So then you would just multiply this by 10. So I think that's way easier than knowing that 96 times 5 is 480, because I probably would not know that. I would have to divide, and that seems difficult. I don't know. So 1 times 10 is 10, but you should order 10 cases. But either way you do it, I think you probably like the first way. I do. I would probably prefer that, just adding 96 over and over again. I don't know. But if you're used to this scaling back and simplifying, if you've gotten good at simplifying, that might be the better way. So let's do this both ways. An average of 112 loaves of cheese bread are sold each week. For every 2 loaves of cheese bread that are sold, about 3 loaves of wheat bread. So oh my gosh. I don't know that we would want to do this with the number line because we're starting at 2 to 3, and we've got to count essentially by twos all the way into 112. So that seems unreasonable, but we know that if it's 2 to 3 cheese bread to whole wheat, and if there's 112 loaves of cheese bread sold, 2 times what is 112? Well, I'd probably have to divide by 2. So 2 cannot go into 1, but 2 goes into 11 5 times, which is 10. Bring down the 2. 2 goes into 12 6 times. So this is 56. So 2 times 56 equals that. So 3 times 56 gives us there. So 56 times 3, 18. 3 times 5 is 15 plus 1 is 16. So we would have had to count by threes until we got to 168. So that kind of seems absurd. So this is whole wheat loaves. All right. All right. See, just check out a couple of the problems. I know you're feeling a little bit overwhelmed, but try and see what you think. I know it seems like a lot because there's a lot of words here on page 42 in your packet. So page 42 and 43 is this last page in your packet. I know it seems like a lot of words, but I think you can do it, right? 4 out of 5 own a bicycle. You can do this any way you want to. You can draw out the strategy with the diagrams. You can simply do what we've been doing from the very start. If 4 out of 5 students own a bicycle, how many of the 800 students own a bicycle? So 5 times what is 800? Whatever we do to the 5 to make the 800, that's what we have to do to the 4, right? So let's see. 5 times what would be 80? You use your multiplication table. 5 times 16 would be 80. So it would be 160. If you want to check my work, you can say 160 times 5. 5 times 0. 5 times 6 is 30. And 5 times 1 is 5 plus 3 is 8. Okay? And so we have to figure out, though, what 4 times 160 would be. So 160 times 4, 0, 24, and then 4 plus that 2 makes 6. So 640 students own a bicycle. So a lot of this is back to where we began. We've given you lots of different strategies, but you can use any one that you prefer, okay? So if you wanted to look at the diagram, though, if it says 5 out of every 8, draw a big diagram, hit a hole, sorry. Oh my gracious. I should have closed my book. And there's 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So I have to divide this 720 by 8. Well, 72 divided by 8 is 9. So each of these would be 90. 90, 90, 90, 90, 90, 90, 90. And 5 of them will buy lunch today. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times 90. Well, 5 times 9 is 45, but 90 is times 10 that, so 450. Is that a reasonable amount? Yeah, it's over half, right? All right, try and make some sense of these. take your time, but do cut out the lots of chatting. When I was here, during part of fourth hour, lots of you are talking, and I'm pretty sure based on some sub notes that a lot of you are spending time talking or whining or not wanting to do it. Don't use me being gone as an excuse. Use it as a way to get help, right? Use this time, go back and watch the videos if needed, but don't just sit there and thinking it's going to come to you. You got to try. You got to put your pencil to the paper and put in some effort.